He has real potential, Alexander. You have to understand, it's just practical financial planning." My mother's words hung in the air of our modest dining room, each syllable another brick in the wall being built between us. I stared at the Oxford University acceptance letter in my trembling hands. An achievement that should have been met with celebration was instead becoming one of the most painful moments of my 18 years. "I got a scholarship that covers half the tuition," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "And my grades are better than Sophie's were when you paid for her to go to Cambridge." My father sighed, not meeting my eyes. "It's not just about grades, son. Sophie is studying medicine, a guaranteed career. Computer science is, well, it's unstable. What happens when all those tech jobs move overseas?" "They've been saying that for 20 years, Dad. Meanwhile, the industry keeps growing." My mother reached across the table to pat my hand, her sympathy clearly performative. "We're not saying don't go to college. There's the community college right here in Manchester. You could transfer to state after 2 years." "That's the sensible path for someone with your aptitudes." My aptitudes. As if my 4.0 GPA coding competition wins and perfect SAT math score were somehow lesser achievements than my sister's B+ average and single-minded determination to become a doctor, just like our father. "We can't sink ourselves financially when your sister's education is already so expensive," my father added, his tone suggesting the discussion was over. "It wouldn't be fair to the family. The family. Always the family. Except when it came to my dreams, my future. Then, suddenly, I was somehow separate. An investment deemed too risky. My name is Alexander Levin, and at 18 I discovered where I stood in my family's hierarchy of potential. Second place, the backup child. The practical one expected to settle for less. What I wanted was simple. The same opportunities my sister received. The chance to attend a top university without working myself to exhaustion. The support of the two people who were supposed to believe in me unconditionally. What stood in my way was equally simple. My parents' unshakable conviction that my sister's medical aspirations automatically outranked my technological ones. Their financial favoritism disguised as pragmatism. Their limited vision of success that couldn't accommodate Silicon Valley dreams. That night, I sat on my bed, surrounded by acceptance letters from schools I now couldn't afford to attend, calculating how many hours I would need to work while taking a full course load to make Oxford possible. The math was brutal, nearly impossible, and as I finally drifted to sleep, my phone lit up with a text from Sophie. "Just heard about Oxford. Don't worry. Medicine was always the better choice anyway. You'll thank Mom and Dad someday." Even my sister, it seemed, had accepted the family narrative that I was reaching beyond my rightful place. Growing up in the Levin household meant understanding your position in the family ecosystem early. My father, Dr. Henry Levin, was a respected cardiologist whose immigrant parents had sacrificed everything to send him to medical school. My mother, Emily, had given up her teaching career to support his rise in the medical community and raise their children, sacrifices she reminded us of regularly. From the beginning, Sophie embraced the predetermined path. 3 years my senior, she played with toy stethoscopes while I dismantled electronic toys to understand their circuitry. She joined future doctors' clubs. I built computers from salvaged parts. She shadowed our father at the hospital. I taught myself coding languages from library books. Our parents celebrated every step of Sophie's journey toward medicine. Her science fair victories warranted family dinners out. My state-level programming competition wins received polite nods. When Sophie was accepted to Cambridge's pre-med program, our parents threw an elaborate party. My acceptance to Oxford's computer science program, one of the most competitive in the world, was met with concerned discussions about financial practicality. I didn't resent Sophie. Not really. She worked hard for her achievements, and her dream of becoming a neurosurgeon was genuine. What I resented was the unquestioned assumption that her path was inherently more valuable than mine. Despite this, I maintained the peace. I helped her study for organic chemistry exams over video calls. I listened patiently to her complaints about difficult professors. I celebrated her successes sincerely, believing that someday my own achievements would receive the same recognition. There were warning signs I chose to ignore. When I needed a new laptop for a coding project in high school, I had to earn the money myself, while Sophie's MCAT prep course, twice as expensive, was covered without question. When I expressed interest in a summer coding camp, my mother suggested I babysit neighborhood children for income instead. Meanwhile, Sophie attended a medical immersion program in Bristol, fully funded by our parents. "Your sister needs these experiences for medical school applications," my father explained when I questioned the disparity. "Those are incredibly competitive." As if Oxford's 4% acceptance rate wasn't competitive. Still, I believed that once I proved myself, once I showed that computer science was a worthwhile path, my parents would recognize my potential too. I clung to this hope through my senior year, applying for every scholarship available, working weekends at a local electronics store, and maintaining perfect grades. The Oxford acceptance letter was supposed to be my vindication. Instead, it became the clearest evidence yet that in my parents' eyes, I would always be the lesser investment. The son whose dreams were expendable when resources grew tight. The summer after high school graduation passed in a blur of exhaustion. While my classmates enjoyed their last carefree months before college, I worked 3 jobs. Morning shifts at a coffee shop, afternoon hours at the electronics store, and evenings doing freelance website development for local businesses. I slept 4 hours a night, saved every penny, and researched student loans until my eyes burned. By August, I had saved enough for my first semester's housing and books, secured loans for tuition, and lined up a part-time job at Oxford's IT department. It wouldn't be easy, but I was going, with or without my parents' support. The night before I left for college, my family held a small dinner. The conversation revolved almost entirely around Sophie's upcoming semester at Cambridge Medical School, her challenging course load, her brilliant professors. My imminent departure for Oxford was an afterthought, mentioned only when I brought up logistics about my flight the next day. As dinner ended, my father disappeared into his study, returning with an envelope that he handed to me with a tight smile. "A little something to help with expenses," he said. "We wish it could be more." Inside was a check for £500, less than 1% of a year's tuition at Oxford. "Thank you," I managed, tucking it away. Later, I overheard my parents in the kitchen. "I still think we should have given him more," my mother said. "Oxford is so expensive." "We've been over this, Emily," my father replied, his voice tired but firm. "We're already stretching our budget with Sophie's medical school. Alexander chose this path knowing we couldn't support it. Besides, tech companies hire kids right out of high school these days. College isn't as necessary in his field." "I suppose you're right," my mother sighed. "And Sophie's education has to come first. She's going to be a doctor after all." The familiar ache in my chest sharpened into something new, a clarity that cut through years of making excuses for their behavior. This wasn't about financial practicality. It had never been. My parents had simply decided long ago which child's dreams were worth investing in. The next morning, my father drove me to the airport in silence. As we approached the terminal, he finally spoke. "You know we're proud of you, right? Going to Oxford is a great accomplishment." "Just not one worth paying for," I replied quietly. He frowned. "That's not fair, Alexander. We've explained our situation." I nodded. not trusting myself to speak further. As I collected my bags from the trunk, he awkwardly patted my shoulder. "Call when you land," he said. "And remember, if it gets too difficult financially, there's always the option to transfer somewhere more affordable." In that moment, I made a silent vow to myself. I would never transfer. I would never give up. And most importantly, I would never again expect my parents to believe in me. From now on, I would believe in myself enough for all of us. I walked into the terminal without looking back, carrying the weight of my belongings, my loans, and the knowledge that I was truly on my own. My first semester at Oxford was a brutal education in sleep deprivation. I took a maximum course load, worked 20 hours a week at the IT department, and spent weekends doing freelance web development. I lived on ramen and coffee, studied until my vision blurred, and still managed to make the dean's list. When winter break arrived, I couldn't afford the flight home to Manchester, so I stayed in the dorms, one of the few students remaining on the nearly empty campus. I called my parents on Christmas Day. "We miss you, son," my mother said, her voice crackling over the poor connection. "It's not the same without you." In the background, I could hear laughter and music, the annual Levin family gathering in full swing. "I miss you too," I replied, not mentioning that I could have been there if they'd offered to help with the flight. "Sophie got straight A's this semester," my father chimed in proudly. "Her professors say she has exceptional potential. How are your computer classes going?" "They're computer science courses, Dad, and they're going well. I made the dean's list." "That's nice," he said, his tone suggesting this achievement was expected rather than exceptional. "Say, we've been thinking. This separation is hard on all of us. There's still time to transfer to Manchester University for spring semester. You could live at home, save money." The suggestion wasn't new, just more persistent. Every phone call included some variation of this same pitch. Sacrifice your dreams for something more practical, more local, more aligned with their idea of success. "I'm doing well here, Dad. This is where I need to be." The conversation shifted to other topics, but the underlying message was clear. My parents still considered my Oxford education a temporary rebellion rather than a legitimate path. When sophomore year began, I added another job to my workload, research assistant to Professor James Williams, whose work in artificial intelligence was revolutionizing the field. The position paid barely minimum wage, but offered something more valuable: mentorship from one of the brightest minds in computer science. Professor Williams noticed my exhaustion one evening as I nodded off during a late research session. "Mr. Levin," he said, his voice startling me awake. "When was the last time you slept for more than 4 hours?" I blinked, trying to remember. "Last weekend?" "Maybe." He frowned. "This isn't sustainable. Your work is excellent, but you're going to burn out." "I don't have a choice," I admitted. "My parents are only supporting my sister through medical school. I'm on my own." Something in his expression shifted. "Come to my office tomorrow. I want to discuss your research more thoroughly." The next day, Professor Williams offered me a position on his newest project, a study that came with a stipend 3 times what I was making as a research assistant. The work was challenging and directly aligned with my interests in machine learning. "This isn't charity," he clarified, seeing my hesitation. "Your algorithms improved our last project's efficiency by 22%. You've earned this." For the first time since arriving at Oxford, I could reduce my work hours slightly. I could occasionally buy fresh groceries instead of ramen. I could breathe. When I called my parents with the news, their response was lukewarm. "That's nice, dear. But is there job security in research?" my mother asked. "Sophie just got accepted for a prestigious hospital internship. It's practically guaranteeing her residency position." The comparison was automatic, reflexive. My achievement immediately measured against my sister's and found wanting. That night, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, exhaustion etched in the dark circles under my eyes despite my slightly lighter workload. The voice in my head that had always whispered, "Prove them wrong," was getting harder to hear beneath the weight of their constant dismissal. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was following a foolish dream, destined for disappointment while Sophie walked the sure path to success. The thought terrified me more than any all-nighter ever could. Junior year, everything changed. Professor Williams introduced me to Dr. Raj Patel, a former student of his who had founded a successful AI startup and was visiting Oxford to recruit talent. After reviewing my work, Dr. Patel offered me a summer internship at his company in London. The internship paid enough that I could finally quit my other jobs. For 3 months, I worked alongside brilliant engineers developing algorithms to help businesses optimize their operations. My specific project, a predictive modeling system for supply chain management, caught the attention of the executive team. On my last day, Dr. Patel called me into his office. "We'd like to offer you a position after graduation," he said. "Your work this summer has been exceptional." The salary he named was more than I'd imagined making even several years out of college. For the first time, I could see a clear path forward, one that wouldn't require working myself to exhaustion. When I called my parents with the news, their response was unexpectedly enthusiastic. "An actual job offer? Already?" my mother exclaimed. "Maybe there is something to this computer science after all." My father actually asked questions about the company, the position, the industry. For once, they seemed genuinely impressed. Their newfound interest felt validating, but something about it also bothered me. Why was external validation from a company more meaningful to them than my academic achievements? Why did money suddenly make my path legitimate when passion and hard work hadn't been enough? I pushed these questions aside, focusing instead on my senior year and the job waiting for me after graduation. I even allowed myself to hope that perhaps my parents were finally seeing me, truly seeing me, for the first time. Then came Thanksgiving break. I had enough money saved from my internship to fly home, eager to share my experiences with my family in person. The dinner conversation started pleasantly enough, with questions about my classes and the job offer. But inevitably, the focus shifted to Sophie, who had news of her own. "I've been accepted for a neurosurgery residency at London Royal Hospital," she announced, beaming. My parents erupted in excitement, my mother actually tearing up with pride. My father proposed a toast, his voice thick with emotion as he proclaimed this the proudest moment for the Levin family. I smiled and congratulated my sister sincerely. Her achievement was impressive, and she had worked hard for it. But as the evening wore on, the contrast in reactions to our respective successes became increasingly apparent. My job offer warranted a brief acknowledgement. Sophie's residency dominated the entire weekend, with relatives called, announcements made, and a special dinner arranged to celebrate. The final blow came when I overheard my parents in the kitchen late that night. "I still think we made the right decision supporting Sophie through medical school," my father said. "Look how it's paying off, Royal Hospital." "Absolutely," my mother agreed. "Though I have to admit, I'm surprised Alexander has done so well with those computers. Who would have thought?" "He's always been resourceful," my father replied. "And now he'll have a good job, even if it's not as prestigious as medicine. Not bad for our practical investment strategy, eh?" Their laughter felt like a knife to my chest. After everything, the sleepless nights, the multiple jobs, the academic excellence despite overwhelming odds, they still viewed my success as a happy accident, a surprising outcome for the son they hadn't believed in enough to support. In that moment, something hardened inside me. The need for their approval, their recognition, their pride, a need that had driven me for years, finally died. And in its place grew something more powerful, the absolute certainty that I would build a future so undeniable that they would be forced to recognize what they had dismissed, not for their sake, but for mine. After graduation, I threw myself into my work at Patel Systems with the same intensity that had carried me through Oxford. The predictive modeling system I'd started as an intern became my primary project, and I expanded it into new industries and applications. Dr. Patel became more than a boss. He was a mentor who recognized my potential and challenged me to reach beyond what I thought possible. Under his guidance, I filed my first patent, presented at industry conferences, and built a reputation as an innovative problem solver. 2 years into my career over coffee in the company kitchen, Dr. Patel asked a question that would change my trajectory. "Have you ever thought about founding your own company, Alexander?" I laughed, assuming he was joking. "I'm barely 24. I don't have that kind of experience." "You have more than you realize," he said seriously. "Your supply chain algorithm has revolutionary potential beyond what we're doing here. It could be the foundation for something bigger." Over the following weeks, we had several conversations about entrepreneurship, market opportunities, and the logistics of starting a tech company. Dr. Patel offered to connect me with investors who might be interested in my ideas. "Why are you helping me like this?" I finally asked. "If my algorithm has so much potential, wouldn't you want to keep it here?" He smiled. "Because 20 years ago, James Williams did the same for me. This is how Silicon Valley works, Alexander. We identify talent and help it grow, even when that means watching it leave the nest." With Dr. Patel's guidance and Professor Williams' encouragement, I developed a business plan for an AI-driven supply chain optimization platform called Logix AI. The concept was ambitious, a system that could predict bottlenecks, suggest efficiency improvements, and adapt to changing conditions in real time. 6 months later, I stood before a panel of venture capitalists, pitching my vision with the confidence of someone who had long ago learned to believe in himself when no one else would. 2 investors expressed interest, offering seed funding that would allow me to leave Patel Systems and build a small team. I called my parents that night, expecting them to be concerned about me leaving a stable job for the uncertainty of entrepreneurship. "That's wonderful news," my mother said, surprising me. "Your own company." "It's still very early stages," I cautioned. "Most startups fail." "But imagine if it succeeds," my father chimed in with unexpected enthusiasm. "Technology is the future after all." Their support felt foreign, almost jarring after years of skepticism about my path. It wasn't until later in the conversation that I understood what had changed. "Your sister's been struggling a bit with her residency," my mother confided. "The hours are brutal, and the politics at the hospital are difficult. She's wondering if she made the right choice." Ah. In the Levine family equation, my stock had risen as Sophie's had temporarily fallen. Their support wasn't about my accomplishments. It was about recalibrating their investment strategy. The realization should have hurt, but instead it felt clarifying. I no longer needed their validation to know my worth. The early days of Logix AI were as grueling as my time at Oxford, but with one crucial difference. Every hour of work was building my vision, not just helping me survive. My small team of 4 operated out of a converted warehouse in Birmingham, living on coffee and determination as we developed our platform. We faced countless setbacks, coding challenges, competitor concerns, dwindling funds, but with each obstacle came innovation. By our second year, we had a functioning prototype and 3 pilot clients willing to test our system. Then came the moment every startup dreads. We were running out of money with no clear path to additional funding. As I prepared to tell my team we might have to close our doors, an unexpected email arrived from Takata Industries, a Japanese manufacturing giant. They wanted a demonstration. 10 years after my parents refused to pay for my Oxford education, I stood in the gleaming headquarters of Logix AI in downtown London, staring at an email that still seemed surreal. Takata Industries had not only decided to implement our system across their global operations, but had led a funding round that valued Logix AI at £300 million. Our Series C round had just closed with £40 million in new funding. The journey from that warehouse in Birmingham to this moment had been arduous but exhilarating. Our team had grown to 60 employees. Our client list included manufacturing giants across 3 continents. And I, the son whose potential had once been dismissed as insufficient, was now CEO of one of the fastest-growing AI companies in the country. The receptionist's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Levin, your parents are here to see you." I hadn't invited them. We spoke occasionally on holidays, but they hadn't visited my office before. Curious, I instructed her to send them up. They entered my corner office with wide eyes, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Tower Bridge, the sleek furniture, the awards lining the walls. My mother embraced me while my father stood awkwardly clutching a newspaper. "We saw the article in the Financial Times," he explained, holding up the business section with Logix AI featured prominently. £40 million. Why didn't you tell us?" "It's been a busy time," I replied, gesturing for them to sit. "We're so proud," my mother gushed, her eyes cataloging every detail of my success. "We always knew you had it in you." My father cleared his throat. "Actually, we were hoping to discuss something with you. You see, we've been thinking about our retirement, and with investment opportunities like this, so rare, well, we wondered if there might be room for some family investment in Logix AI. There it was, the real reason for their unexpected visit." I smiled. "Let me show you something." I led my parents out of my office to a long hallway where a series of framed displays chronicled Logix AI's history. The first frame contained my Oxford acceptance letter, alongside a cup of ramen noodles preserved in resin. "This is where it started," I explained. 3 jobs, 4 hours of sleep a night, and instant noodles for every meal. We moved down the hall to displays showing my first algorithm patents, rejection letters from early investors, and a photo of our original team in the Birmingham warehouse. Each step was a fight, I continued, watching their expressions shift from confusion to discomfort. Every milestone required sacrifice and supporters who actually believed in the vision. The final display held the Takata Industries contract and a photograph of our current leadership team, brilliant minds who had joined Logix AI when it was still a risky bet. "Our investment policy is very specific," I said, stopping before this last frame. "We only bring in partners who demonstrated faith in us during the difficult early days, people who saw potential when others didn't." My father's face reddened. "We're family, Alexander. Surely that counts for something." "It does," I agreed. "That's why I established this." I showed them a brochure for the Logix AI Foundation, which provided full scholarships to promising students in STEM fields who lacked family financial support. Every year, we fund 20 students who remind me of myself at 18, full of potential but told their dreams weren't practical investments. My parents stood silent, finally understanding. "I don't need family investors," I said gently. "But those students do need someone to believe in them. That's the lesson I learned from you, though perhaps not the one you intended to teach."